policy, because you've been shepherding it, you've been marshalling for India's foreign policy over the last 5 years. Aside of the G20, the COVID vaccines, navigating India's interests through these two wars, what is the one thing that you would say is the standout for the Modi government, which no other government in the realm of foreign policy has done in the last 75 years?
Well, look, if, it's not an if, it is a when. When I go out and explain foreign policy of the last 10 years to people, I would actually tell them Modi ki guarantee works as much abroad as it does in the country. Okay. And it is Modi ki guarantee which moved the whole Indian system in Operation Ganga, where 5 ministers were deputed and told you sort out those places and come back when the last people come back, when the military is put to work on a mission like this. It could be that, it could be Operation Kaveri in Sudan, it could be what we did during COVID, the whole Vande Bharat mission, that anybody who was stuck somewhere, I mean, there were shipping crews, there were air crews, there were hotel people, there were tourists, there were students who had been, told your hostel is closed, go home. So what has happened today? And it isn't just the people who came back. If you looked at the Gulf, where we have today almost 90 lakh people, my deputy Muralidharan and I were regularly going to Gulf during the COVID because we were carrying messages from PM to the Gulf regime saying, please take care of our people. And they did respond. They did take care of them. So, and it could be, it need not be just taking care in a physical sense. The Modi ki guarantee also applies that I will take the right decision to make sure your petrol costs are kept within reasonable grounds by not bowing to political pressure. So that sense that, we have a national interest, the national interest will and national welfare in a way, we will do what it takes. We will send troops in the height of COVID to defend our northern borders. We will react to terrorism in a way in which will deter, any sort of repetition of such attacks. So it works in different ways. I think today, when part of the reason why people respond to foreign policy is they can see that visibly our international stock, our credibility, our weight, our influence has gone up.
So just like the government puts its record to the people and says these are the things that we've achieved in the last 5 years, 10 years, the opposition also has a right to say that, look, this we think are the failures of the government when it comes to foreign policy. So they say, look at the whole situation vis-a-vis China. You mentioned that. The opposition's even gone to the extent of saying you've lost territory to China. Look at the neighborhood. Even friendly countries are not so friendly anymore. The situation with Pakistan is back in the back burner. With the West, there are serious differences on the Russia-Ukraine war, on the Israel-Hamas war. What would you say to that? What would you say to the opposition's narrative?
Well, I would say, some of the places which, by the way, they said we had lost, were lost in 1962, if not before. So I'd say first go and get a lesson in history, possibly in geography. The second, we may have, differences with the West on Ukraine. But the purpose of foreign policy is not to agree with other powers on the basis of their interest. The purpose of foreign policy is to defend your interest and advance it. So if I have a difference, I have a difference. So what would the opposition like me to do? To get along with people and increase my petrol purchase, price at which I buy fuel? So, I mean, let's get the parameter of judgment right. I still say that if you look, or take Pakistan, yes, today our relations are very, at a formal level, are very minimal. But why has it happened? It has happened for two reasons. One, because we have put terrorism fair square at the center of the relationship. And number two, the Pakistanis reacted to our long, in my view, a long awaited, something which should have been done much earlier, decision on 370. So what would the opposition want us to do? Not do 370 because it will upset Pakistan? Or talk to Pakistan ignoring that they do terrorism? Actually, that's what the opposition was doing. So if you ask me, look, foreign policy is not run as a global popularity exercise. It is run I mean, if you have an appeasement mentality at home, you will take it outside.
So one of the points you mentioned, and again, this is the latest sort of criticism against your government, points of difference, if you will, with the West, is on the CAA, the Citizenship Amendment Act. The US State Department has reacted to it. I think the MEA has also put out a formal statement against it. When you speak to your Western counterparts, how do you tell them that this is not a discriminatory law, that people are not being discriminated basis their religion?
Well, actually, it isn't when you speak. I have spoken. When CAA was passed, I did speak. Even now, I continue speaking. And there were 2 points I made. I actually, I had a meeting with all our European colleagues, EU colleagues. I'd gone to Brussels at that time. And I asked each one of them to look at the citizenship pathways which they have in their respective countries. And can you tell me that there is no criteria by which you will fast track a certain category? Every one of them has something. It could be religion, it could be historical, it could be language, it could be ethnicity. The fact is, and the US, I'm on record as giving multiple examples of that. So look, do understand, this is an issue of correcting a certain situation of our history. And it is a question of being just, of being fair to those people who were caught on the wrong side of history at the time when partition happened. And who at that time, whose welfare people worried about even then. So, and as I said, this is not unique. I mean, if you go around the world, in different parts of the world, history has stranded people in different situations. Now, you can either be completely heartless and utterly calculating and say, well, it doesn't matter, who cares what happens. But if you look at the predicament of these people, these are stateless people who are stateless because of no fault of theirs, because political leaders of a certain era got it wrong. Somebody is righting a wrong. They're not wronging anybody. They are actually righting a situation where a wrong has been done to many people.
You mentioned, not in a direct way, but in a tangential way about this in your book as well, Why Bharat Matters, as to why you believe, and you've made a case for it, it's for up to people to agree or disagree with it, that because of that mentality that you referred to in the first few decades after independence, there were missed foreign policy opportunities, particularly vis-a-vis Pakistan and vis-a-vis China.
And vis-a-vis the US.
And vis-a-vis the US as well. So, but some would say, now you have the benefit of hindsight to make that argument, to make that case. Perhaps in the 50s and 60s, that case would have been looked down upon or may not have been entertained. So, how do you then make the case that, these were missed goals or missed opportunities because there was a certain political bent of mind?
I saw that argument coming, and therefore I anticipated it. So,
a good batsman.
So let me tell you. I mean, first of all, I just want you to think of this one very simple fact. You got Pakistan wrong, you got China wrong, you got US right, and we had a great foreign policy. So put that aside. I am not saying today, benefit of 2024, that, let's look back at 1954 or 1950. I'm saying somebody in 1948, 49, 50, 51, 52, as you were taking those decisions, stood up and said, please, Mr. Nehru, what you are doing, have you looked at this aspect of it? So this is not hindsight. These are Nehru's contemporaries who are questioning decisions which Nehru was taking at that point of time. So what are these decisions? I give you three. Shyama Prasad Mukherjee actually contests very strongly the Nehru-Liaquat Pact, saying, look, you are assuming that Pakistan is going to treat its minorities the same way as we are treating our minorities. But the very nature of creation of Pakistan and the regime which has come into being is very different. So how can you possibly make, such a fundamental misreading of these guys? And mind you, this is just 3 years after partition. Okay. Well, a little bit more. The Patel, I'm giving you an example of China. Patel puts in writing that today, for the first time, we are facing a two-front situation. The intentions of China cannot be taken in a positive way. There is much that we have to apprehend. So please do not, have a sort of rosy picture of the situation. What is the answer from Nehru? I cannot conceive that anybody would undertake a wild adventure across the Himalayas. By the way, that's exactly what they did in 1962. So now, if Jaishankar in 2024 says, oh, they got it wrong in 1954, your question is very, very valid. It's not Jaishankar who's saying it. It's Patel saying it on China. It is Shyama Prasad Mukherjee saying it on Pakistan. It is B.R. Ambedkar who says, look, why are you alienating the Americans? If you are to argue, you want to take on the American, I have no problem with it. I just told you foreign policy can be pushed back. At least fight your own cause. We were alienating the Americans on behalf of China. That we were taking up China's cause. And more than anything else, what an irony. That imagine, in 1950s, we spoilt our relationship with America because we were arguing on behalf of China. So this is not hindsight. This is not a political polemic. I am placing before, especially the younger generations, because they wouldn't be familiar with it. I am placing historical situations, which is what I called a road not taken. That road was available. That road was marked. Those people drew a map and said, don't go this way, go that way. And we consciously chose not to take those roads. Now, I'm not saying there were no-brainers. There were pluses and minuses. But we need to get out of this, cult worship that everything from 1946 till pick your year, these were great years and we did splendidly. If anything went wrong, other people were to blame. But, Nehru's foreign policy is such a sort of impeccable theology that even today, whoever comes to power must follow it. And any deviation is somewhere wrong. I think, companies are audited. After all, countries should also be audited, for policies should be audited. People should look at what happened in the past with an open mind, with a critical mind. And by the way, I'm not saying it should only happen then. I'd be very happy if somebody said, I'd like to discuss the last 10 years with you. In fact, that's exactly what you're doing. And please defend your record. I'd be very happy to defend it.
So let's talk about one big aspect of that record, and since you referred to in the previous answer about a two-front situation, are we not in a two-front situation today?
We have, my friend, we have always been. It is we who were in denial.